When we post out on social media or whatever, our content has the potential to reach lots and lots of people. It's just that it's not landing, like people aren't paying attention.
You are the light that will attract the audience. You don't bend to fit into this illusion of an audience that you think is just sitting out there.
Hello, I'm so excited that you're here and joining me for this episode. I've got something really special in store for you. Firstly, I'm joined by my amazing friend, Brandon Lucero. Brandon is amazing, and he is going to be talking to us about how you can create really engaging content and actually get people listening to you, because I think that's something we struggle with, feeling like we're putting out content and that no one's paying attention, no one is engaging with us, and we just feel so frustrated, and so many people give up in that place. So we're going to dissect it all and talk about it. So I'm really excited. Brandon, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here and glad to share my expertise with everyone.
I know, I can't wait. Like, obviously, you've been on the podcast before and chatted some really good. We had some really good chats. So yeah, it's good to have you here because I know how amazing you are when it comes to this stuff. So for everyone listening, Brandon and I worked together on video content. It feels like a lifetime ago now. Bloody hell.
Yeah. 3 or 4 years ago, probably.
Yeah. Fly out to California, I was in California with Kellen, and then we'd meet up and do filming days and create content, and then mostly just chat. And then we would be like, oh, maybe we should do some filming now.
Just talk about the woo for like 3 hours. Like, hey, we should probably film some videos.
Literally, when we realized that we were both really like into like woo stuff. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. Our friendship was formed. But it's so cool. Obviously, all the amazing things that you are doing now. So let's talk about this topic. Creating engaging content and actually getting people to listen. I feel like, well, I know it's been a struggle that I've experienced, and it's a struggle I see coming up over and over and over again within my community of people struggling with this. What are some of the things you see? Because this is your area of expertise, your space.
Yeah. So right now, more than ever, I've just been experiencing and seeing people blending in with their content. And so, there's a lot of people out there that are really good at what they do. Like, they have amazing skill sets, and they're like, cool, I want to start a service or a course or a program or something. I'm going to put out content. And then they talk about their skill set. They talk about, what they're really good at. They also have really big hearts. So I'm assuming a lot of people listening to this, like, just want to help people, and you have a skill set. They put content out there and it goes unheard. And so basically what's happening right now is there's an oversaturation of content and online businesses, especially with the pandemic. There's so many offline businesses that are now coming online. So the market is super saturated. So for example, if you're a weight loss coach and you do a video titled How to Lose 10 Pounds, like, you go into YouTube and you type in how to lose 10 pounds or Google or whatever, there's probably 10,000 videos titled How to Lose 10 Pounds. So you may be really good at what you do, but the audience, number one, may not even be finding you. Number two, they perceive you the same as everyone else. You might be different, but they don't know that. They just see one of 10,000 videos titled How to Lose 10 Pounds. And so I call it the content circle of death. It's like where we focus just on how-to content and educational content and tutorials, and then you just blend in with everyone else. And because there's so much competition, we actually have to start making ourselves different in the eyes of the audience. That's key. It's not like, hey, I know I'm different, I'm going to put out content that's a little bit different. You need to make sure the audience perceives you as different. And that's one of the biggest problems that people are experiencing right now, is they just don't know what to do. Everyone tells you, add value, teach, your best stuff for free, and that will lead to sales. And it's like, well, first of all, it doesn't really lead to sales. And second of all, it actually is causing you to not even get any traction in the first place. So what we've done over the last couple of years is really get down into the psychology of what people need to do in order to thrive. And so when we look at people like Gary Vaynerchuk or Simon Sinek, Brene Brown, David Goggins, Mel Robbins, they're not focusing on tutorials. They're not focusing on how-to content. They're not focusing on step-by-step stuff. We still need all that, but we have to be doing something differently like they are. And so what we've done is just developed a philosophy that helps people basically do exactly that, so that they don't continue to blend in anymore, and they can actually stand out because they stand for something. They can stand out because of who they are, and then they can actually create demand while they add value. And the last thing I'll say is that I always use the encyclopedia as kind of like an analogy. Like when you look at the best-selling books, they're never encyclopedias, which are filled with great information. They're always filled, the books that are at the top are the ones that shift people's perspective. They get people to see things differently. They make people aware of problems they didn't realize they had, or mistakes they didn't realize they had. So if those best-selling books are educating in a very specific way, why aren't we doing that as online business owners? Because there's other ways to educate and add value besides just giving a step-by-step tutorial. And TED Talks are another great example of like another education style that's also engaging. So again, that we've just developed a philosophy that helps encompass all of that and help people that are stuck.
It is so interesting because, I think so many people do go down the route of creating like how-to tutorials. And then, you literally do just blend in with everyone else. And then you're like, why am I not actually gaining any traction with putting this content out? Like, why is it not being seen and being heard? And it's really interesting when you talk about people like Mel Robbins and all those kinds of people, is like when I see them pop up on like Instagram and things, I always feel so drawn in and so like captivated by what they're saying and what they're talking about. And I'm really interested to like dissect this more with you and see like, okay, so what are some of the things we can do? Because I think sometimes I see things and I feel personally like I love getting to know people and hearing people's stories, and sometimes as well when you see like a bit more polarizing content and you like are on their side, it's like, oh yeah, actually, who are you? Like it'll suck me in. So what are some of the things that people can do, like for people listening who are like, oh my gosh, this is me, like I'm just stuck creating this content, no one's paying attention to me, no one's listening to me. How do I actually start to build momentum with creating the right content? Like, where do they begin?
Good question. I'm just gonna. Where I want to take this is a little long, so feel free just to interrupt me at any point. But there's a couple of things that we have to go through. Number one, in order to have effective content, your content has to do three things. If you were using content to build a business, number one, it has to get eyeballs on you, so you can't blending in. That usually this is like your titles have to be a little bit differently, phrased differently, things like that. Then we have to keep eyeballs on us. And that is our communication. How are we talking? Are we engaging? Are we pulling people in? Are we speaking to their subconscious? Are we being clear on what we're saying? And then number three is we have to create demand while the content's on us. And so to me, there's a difference between pitching and selling. Pitching is when you finally like open up cart, you go through and you say, here's my modules, here's my bonuses. People can buy right then and there. But selling should be happening in your content. Your content should be doing the selling. It should be creating demand. It should be building rapport. It should be getting people to connect with you. So we need all three: eyeballs on us, keep the eyeballs on us, and create demand while the eyeballs on us. There's a concept that I've been kind of looking at that we kind of go through when we create content. And there's actually 4 phases, and you have to understand these 4 phases because this is exactly what your audience does when they consume your content. Number one is there's some sort of experience. Okay. So they have an experience with your content. Maybe they read a title, maybe they clicked on the video, maybe they're reading the caption, but there is an experience. That's number one. Number two, as soon as they have that experience, their mind goes into an automated response. So that's phase 2. There's an automated response. Number 3, when that automated response happens, that evokes some sort of emotion. That emotion is I'm bored, or I'm excited, or this is mind blowing, or I can't wait to learn more. And those first 3 phases happen automatically without your audience being aware of it. In fact, if you're listening to this podcast, you've been doing that already on this podcast. As you're listening, you might have already thought, this is interesting. This is my problem, or I want to learn more, or I'm bored, or whatever. But the point is you didn't logically sit down and go, okay, is this podcast episode good? Is it bad? How do I know if it's good? How do I know if it's bad? If you did that, you would have been making a logical or conscious decision. But most of our decisions throughout the day are unconscious or done by our subconscious. So everyone does that. That's just the way humans are designed. Phase 4 is when they have that emotional response, they either decide to leave or to stay. So what happens is they have an experience and that brings them through the whole process and they decide to leave or stay. So when we look at someone consuming your content to becoming a customer, if they aren't staying all the way to become a customer, there's something that's happening in the experience that's causing them to leave. And it's usually not a logical decision. They just like, this isn't relevant to me, or I'm bored, or this, I don't need this, or whatever kind of experience. So what we have to look at is how do we change the experience people are having with our content? So if we post a video titled How to Lose 10 Pounds, someone's scrolling through, they experience the title, an automated response might be like, I already know how to do this, or this doesn't apply to me, or whatever. So they skip. So I want to change the experience. How do we start to do that? Well, the first step is to start adjusting your titles to incorporate things like identities, beliefs, and values. So, for example, if I was a weight loss coach, instead of putting how to lose 10 pounds, I might put how stay-at-home moms lose 10 pounds. And the reason why I would put that is because number one, that's who I want to attract. But as soon as I put the identity stay-at-home mom, what happens is it changes the experience someone has when they see that title come across their newsfeed. If they're a stay-at-home mom, their subconscious goes, hey, they're talking about you. We're more specific, but we're using identity in our title. So step number one is just use identities and values and beliefs in your titles. Don't just label it like how to do one thing, like how certain, like X, Y, and Z can do this one thing, or how you can do this one thing without, and then you list pain points, like how to run faster without having to do long runs, right? So we can start to use and wordsmith our titles a little bit differently to stand out, but also apply to people on a deeper level so that we completely change the experience that they have and then now cause them to stay. Once we get past the title, now we move on to the next thing, which is getting them to stay on the content. So now they're having a completely new experience. So from someone first seeing you for the first time to becoming a customer, it's literally like experience after experience after experience. And we have to change the way we communicate in order to keep people there. Does all that make sense so far?
It does make sense. I was thinking, I had a conversation recently with somebody and they were saying that they did that exact thing. They got really specific on the identity, like the identity piece in their copy. And she said she said it was like a frenzy, like people just flocked to it, and then the conversion on it was just off the charts because the app they felt so connected with it and they felt like it was literally for them. I mean, it was, but I think so often we don't state it. And I think it's such a great little tip just to like state it up front in the title.
Yeah. I mean, stating it and that's the biggest problem one of the biggest problems people have is they're like, oh, I just keep attracting the wrong people. And my next question is like, well, what identities are you using in your language? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And it's like, well, if you want specific people coming into your brand, then literally just put whatever they are or whoever they are in your content and it will weed people out. So for example, if I had a membership for father entrepreneurs, I don't want to attract all entrepreneurs. So I wouldn't say, hey, entrepreneurs, here's the right mindset. I would say, here's the perfect mindset for entrepreneurs and fathers, or entrepreneurs who are also fathers. And I just start using language like that, like entrepreneurs, fathers, dads, business owners. And what happens over time is then those become the only people that are interested in my content. And it also tells everyone else like, hey, this isn't going to be relevant to you. So now we're attracting exactly who we want on a deeper level. We don't require them to think about it. They just automatically go, yep, that's me. And now we can attract exactly who we want. But you touch on something really important, which was getting specific. And I think this is one of the biggest problems that people have, especially when it comes to their communication, is they aren't specific enough and they're very generalized. And so to give you an example, I know like I've worked with over 1,000 students and with their messaging, and I've done plenty of interviews, like probably hundreds of interviews, kind of like this one. And I know that if you're listening to this podcast right now, this episode through headphones, you're going to retain 50% less of the information. Now, by the way, guys, that's not true. So if you're wearing headphones, like don't worry. My point is that as soon as I said, if you're listening while wearing headphones, even if you weren't really paying attention or you're half paying attention, your subconscious probably sent alarm bells off and got you to go and tune into exactly what I'm saying. Why? Because I was talking so specifically about what you were doing in this moment that your subconscious is going to start sending alerts of this is relevant to you. Pay attention. There might be a problem. Pay attention. If I just said, hey, if you're listening to this podcast episode, then you might run into problems. It's not going to apply to you as much. But as soon as I say with headphones, and then if you're also the person who didn't have headphones on, you're probably like, whew, okay, that's not me. But again, what I said wasn't true. Like the headphone thing isn't true about retaining information, but hopefully what you're seeing is like, as soon as you get specific in your communication, you change the experience someone is having. So it changes their automated response, it changes their emotion, and it causes them to leave or to stay. And as soon as I call you out, like headphones, your mind goes whoop, and you're like now more attentive and paying attention to what I'm saying. And so you're deciding to stay. Does that make sense, Carrie?
It does. And I feel like I can really see how when people start creating content that really calls out who they're trying to speak to, how those people will just naturally start to like actually like almost like a magnet, they'll start to like really discover them or see them or pay attention. Because I mean, like when we post out on social media or whatever, our content has the potential to reach lots and lots of people. It's just that it's not landing, like people aren't paying attention. But it's like when you figure out actually, well, why aren't people paying attention, and what changes can I make to get people to pay attention? Just in like a small shift, like you said, in terms of like the title and what you're saying, the language that you're using will just naturally help you to attract that audience, the right audience to you, and get them to like stick with you, like that, become that magnet, which just makes so much sense.
Yeah. I mean, well, it happens is 99% or maybe even more of people are just so generalized in their messaging, and it's not on purpose. It's just as humans, that's just how we naturally communicate, is usually in generalizations. So I'll give you one more scenario so you guys can, hopefully the listeners can really see how this works even on a deeper level. If you like, let's say you were on a hike and you like fell into this hole and it's like 50 feet down, and you're like, how am I going to get out of this cave or this hole? I have no idea. Person number one comes up to you and says, okay, just grab the rocks that you see coming out of the side of the cliff, make sure they're sturdy enough to hold you, and then you just pull yourself up all the way to the top. That's person number one. Person number two comes up to you and says, hey, I saw you fell down this hole. I hope you're okay. Like, how are you feeling? You feeling good? Okay. Here's what you need to do to get out of this hole. Go to the right side. Do not go to the left side. The rocks are going to look like they're sturdy, but they're not. So go to the right side. Now you're going to see a vine hanging about 1 foot up from your head. Pull yourself up using that vine onto a rock that's about 4 feet high. You can stand on that. 2 feet to your right, there's going to be a big sandy area. You can actually dig out steps in the sand and walk up about 15 feet. From there, you're going to move 3 feet to the right, and you're going to grab this gray rock that's sticking out about 2 feet. You can pull yourself up, stand on it. From there, you should be able to reach your hand to the top where the ground is, which is right where I'm standing, and then I can grab you and pull you out. If you're that person and those two people approached you, whose advice are you going to take? Are you going to take person number one, who is like, hey, just grab these rocks and make sure they're sturdy? Or are you going to be trusting the person who was so specific on exactly what you needed to do? You're probably going to be more inclined to listen to number two. And the reason why is because they were so specific, but the only way someone can get that specific is because they've done it before. And so what happens is when you become very specific in your communication, the audience starts to assume that you have the answer or the solution, because the only way you can get that specific is to speak from experience. And if you have the experience, that means you have the solution. So even if you start getting very specific on a bunch of different topics, and it's not totally what the audience is going through, or not all of them are going through, the fact that you're getting specific already shows that you have been there before and you have a solution. And again, that's all automatic. They're not thinking about it. They're not logically thinking about it. But anytime you hear someone talk so specifically to your pain points, to your emotions, to a solution, all that stuff, the subconscious mind just starts firing. Oh my God, they're talking about you. And also, this is the person that you need to work with. And so that's just one tool. Like getting specific is just one tool to kind of help facilitate all this, but it is one of the easiest ones to start implementing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. I love that. That example was so good. Yes, number 2 all the way. So what are some, like, obviously you talked about how-to content and like how-to content isn't necessarily the content that's going to get you the traction. Can you share a little bit on like what are the types of content people could create? Like what other types are there?
Yeah, so there's 3 main areas that I like to focus on. Number 1 is what I call educational, or I guess what everyone calls educational. And when I say educational, I don't necessarily mean how-to videos. Like, again, we need those. You still want how-to videos. You still need to do them. You need to teach. You need to add value in that way. But when we look at other educational videos, they could be things like top 5 mistakes that stop you from getting this benefit. You can also do like tell stories and experiences. Those are all great educational types of content. So educational, which I think most people are aware of. Then there's connection videos or connection content. It could be a connection podcast, image, whatever, but connection basically is you talking about your deeper purpose or beliefs that you have that your audience will also have. Gary Vaynerchuk is great with this type of content. And one of the things that I tell people to focus on is their deeper purpose. And most people actually have their deeper purpose a little bit backwards. So when I ask people like, what's your why? What I normally hear is results that they bring, not their why. So to give you an example, if I was a copywriter and someone said, what's your why? I might say something like, to help entrepreneurs make a bigger impact. And I'm like, well, that's not really your why. That's more of a result that you bring your people. And most people are still confused by it. Like, what do you mean? That is my why. And here's the difference. No one's going to rally behind you helping people write more impactful copy. So when you're saying, I help entrepreneurs write more impactful copy, you're not going to get 10,000 people going like, yep, let's like rally behind Brandon so he can help people write better copy for entrepreneurs. That's just not going to happen. Our deeper purpose needs to be when 10,000 people have your why or your result, now what effect is created in the world? And that's the deeper purpose. So instead of a copywriter saying, I help entrepreneurs write better copy so they can make a bigger impact, it's I help destroy old, outdated industry norms that create a better world for my kids. And which is that's actually my deeper purpose and why I love this style of messaging. But now we're going one level deeper. The copywriting thing becomes a tool to help facilitate this much bigger purpose. And I'll give you one more example. If I was the weight loss coach and I wanted to work with stay-at-home moms, I might say I help moms lose 10 pounds so that they become more confident. And I would argue, that's a result that you bring. When 10,000 mothers lose 10 pounds, what happens in the world? Like what long-lasting effect is created in the world? And it might be something like, well, I'm actually helping mothers who have daughters, and I'm helping them be examples to their daughters of what's possible when women set their mind to something. And so now your deeper purpose now focuses on, I bring confidence to the new generation of young women coming up in this world. That is something that people will rally behind. So you're a weight loss coach, but now you're getting people to rally behind a deeper purpose or message, which is literally changing the generation, the next generation of young women coming up in this world. That's something people will rally behind. And that type of stuff becomes connection content. You start putting that type of content out there mixed with educational, you start to become that authority because you have the educational content and engaging if you do stuff besides tutorials. And then now we have connection. People just like you. People like you because of your message. They like you because of who you are. And that leads us to the third type, but let me check in there. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah. And I think it completely makes sense. And I love all that stuff on like what the actual mission is, like exactly what you're saying, like what is the movement you're getting people to rally around? And like, you have to know what that movement is. I feel like for all of us, every single entrepreneur is creating a platform. Like, we're all creating platforms, we're all creating communities of people, whether we think we are or we think we're not, but we are. And it's like, what message, what mission are we getting people to rally around? And like, if you don't even, like you said, if people are so focused on like, this is the result I'm getting for someone, like, no one's going to rally around that. Like, missing a trick by not getting really clear on what is your platform, like what is it you're here to say, like how are you using your voice, like are you creating something that's going to matter? It's such a game changer. I think that's a really big way to like elevate your business, is through getting so clear on that.
It is. And again, it's one of those things people just aren't aware of. I think a lot of people usually communicate from their perspective, but one of the things we've switched in our philosophy is we have to look at the perspective of the audience we want to attract. And just even stopping and asking yourself, like, is this something that's going to land with them? Is this addressing their problem? Is this addressing what they're dealing with right now? Because so many of us actually have what I call solution-based messaging, where it's like, hey, I know what the solution is, but we're not addressing their problem. But the problem is the audience is at a problem right now, and we're at the solution. So we can't speak from the solution. We have to speak from the problem. In a way to kind of bring this, to make this relevant, it would be like, what I do is I really help people with messaging. Like at the end of the day, that's what I do, because messaging fuels everything. It fuels your content. It fuels your strategy. It's everything. It's the foundation of everything. But a lot of people don't realize they have messaging problems yet. So if I had a webinar and I titled it "How to Fix Your Messaging," it might work, it might not work, because it's only going to work for the people that realize that messaging is the solution. But if I look at what is the problem people are experiencing, they don't have engaging content. They're being unheard. So now what I'm going to do is adjust my title to be something like "How to Create Engaging Content without endless amounts of time," or something, usually spending endless amounts of time. And it's going to be the same content on the webinar. I'm still going to teach the same thing, but the title is completely different because it's meeting them with their problem. And again, it goes back to what you were just talking about with the deeper purpose and having a bigger mission. When we focus on our why and it becomes a result, that's usually because we're looking at us and what we think is the deeper purpose, not necessarily what's going to get people to rally behind us. And so if we just even ask ourselves, like, how is this going to land with them? Are they going to rally behind me or support me in this? And the answer is no. Well, then we got to start changing the way we're talking and looking at connection content.
So true. I mean, even before we hit record on this, people were like, right, what are people going to be struggling with when it comes to this? Like, what might they want to hear? Like, what might be appealing? And then we were like, how to create engaging content and actually get people to listen. So I feel like, but it's like taking the time to really think through, like, who is going to be listening to this? What are they really struggling with? How are we showing up for them? Like, what is it that we're talking about? And like, even just something as simple as that, and just, it's so powerful. Like, makes me think, this week I was having a meeting with the team and we were talking about, like, we're planning out a bunch of social media stuff, and we defined these questions for us to ask ourselves every time we post out a piece of content. And it was like thinking about who our audience are, and it's like, she is like in the trenches of building a business. She's in it, she's doing it. She's maybe feeling overwhelmed or stuck or confused, but moments of inspiration followed by moments of despair, being like, what the hell am I doing? And she's there in the trenches. And who are we to her? Like, we're there with her. We're like guiding her. We're by her side. We're like this best friend, showing her like how to get up out of the trenches, like how to actually build this incredibly successful business, and like how to get there. So it's like, when we create content, it's like, are we talking to her, the person that's like in that place? Like, where is she at? How does she feel? Are we meeting her where she's at? Is what we're creating helping get her a little bit, a step closer towards where she wants to get to, like building this amazingly successful business? And like, is this even relevant? Like, if we saw this pop up on social media or wherever, would we stop and engage with it? Or would we be like, this is really boring? And it's like, if we are not saying yes to all of those questions, and the answer is no, we're not posting this out. Because I think it's so easy to just post crap, because like, you just, you're not thinking about it. You're not actually identifying like, what is the purpose of this? Why am I even doing this? Who am I even doing it for? And you're just stuck in this cycle of like, what did you call it earlier? The death cycle or something.
The content circle of death.
Content circle of death. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I think so many of us stuck in that loop, and just getting so much more intentional about how we're showing up and like all the things you've been sharing. It's game changing.
Right. And I think you touch on a couple really important things there, but I like the way you guys are looking at it, because it avoids mindless posting, which I think people have to get stuck in the cycle of like feeling like they have to post every day. And you don't have to post every day. You can post once a week if you want, but if it's really great content that hits people on those deeper levels, you can post once a week and you'll be totally fine. It's about, and this is my philosophy on messaging and content, is like, you just have to do you. You have to remember who you are. You have to not bend to the external world. Don't do like survey your audience, but don't do everything they tell you to do. Don't let them control your message. Gary Vaynerchuk's not serving his audience. Mel Robbins not serving her audience. They're creating a message that they love, and they know the message will attract people. And you have to remember, you are the light that will attract the audience. You don't bend to fit into this illusion of an audience that you think is just sitting out there. And that alone can shift a lot of things for you. But one thing that I loved about what you said you were doing was you ask all those questions, but that allows you to get very specific in your communication and your content as well, the way you guys are going about it. One of the things that I like doing is you use the phrase in the trenches. She's in the trenches. And I'm assuming you don't use language like, do you feel like you're in the trenches? No. What you're probably doing is you're describing what that is. And that's what I say to people is like, one of the best ways to get specific is don't say overwhelmed. Tell me they're overwhelmed without saying they're overwhelmed. And what does that look like? It's like, oh, they post 3 times a week and they get no traction. They are working 9 hours a day. Like, you start to use that specific language in your content. Well, now you totally change the experience they're having, which causes them to stay. And so, again, those things are extremely important. There is one more style of content. Should I head over in that direction? Okay. This one is called thought reversals. This one, I believe, in my opinion, it's my favorite. And it's also the one that I think is the most effective in standing out, but also blowing people's minds. So when we look at like the best-selling books, they usually shift your perspective. They get you to see something you didn't realize before. And right now, there's a lot of things that your audience is dealing with, and they have no idea what's causing the problem. So we have to understand that our audience has very specific problems. They're experiencing problems. That's why they need us, because we're here to solve their problem. That's the only reason why we're here, is to solve a problem. So we solve their problems. Well, the only reason those problems exist in their life is because they're taking some sort of action to cause that problem. Sometimes it's a lack of action, but for the sake of this exercise, it's usually an action item. They're doing some kind of action and it's creating a problem in their life. Well, we only take actions if we have some type of belief around that action. We believe that action is going to do something, and it doesn't, it leads to a problem. So when you start to look at it through that lens, you start to go, okay, here's the problems my audience is having. Let me identify what actions they have. Here's the thing. They are not aware that those actions are causing those problems. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing it. So what thought reversals do is they make them aware that that action actually causes the problem. And this is when we start to get mind-blowing results for people, where people are like, oh, you blew my mind. Because now they see things from a whole different perspective, but you brought them to a level of awareness so they can stop doing the things that are causing problems. So the example that I always give is, it goes back to running, because I was a NCAA Division I cross-country and track runner. So I ran all through high school and college. I can show people how to run a sub 5-minute mile. If there's somebody who's running like 5:10, 5:15, and they just can't get the last 10 seconds off, sometimes telling them what to do isn't really going to make the difference. Sometimes telling them what to stop doing, that's stopping the results, is even more effective. So if I look down at this person and they're wearing trainers instead of track spikes, I go, oh, they're taking an action, which is wearing trainers while racing. That action is actually causing a problem, which is causing them to not break the 5-minute mile. Let me make them aware of that. So what I would do is just say, hey, are you aware that wearing trainers are one of the worst things you could do when trying to break a 5-minute mile? And they're like, what? Because now, again, I'm speaking to their subconscious. I'm speaking to their automated results. Oh my God, that's exactly what I'm doing. And I would say, yeah, they actually add about 100 pounds of extra weight that you have to carry through a 1 mile race. And now their mind's kind of blown. I said, so let's actually stop doing that. Let's put track spikes on. And now they go wear the track spikes and boom, they break the 5-minute mile. I didn't tell them what to do. I told them what to stop doing. And that's what thought reversals do, is you get to identify what are these industry norms? What are these outdated norms that people just keep following that are actually causing problems in their life? And let me create a video or a piece of content that makes them aware of it. And then now I can show them a better way. And when you do this, you're actually giving people gas pedal things your brake pedal versus gas. So tutorials are the gas pedal things. Those are the things that can propel someone forward. But if their foot's on the brake at the exact same time, they're not going to move forward. What thought reversals do is they get people to take their foot off the brake. So now we have this trifecta going on where we're blowing people's minds, shifting their perspective, adding value in different ways, but we're also connecting with them. And, we're doing all of it at the same time. So we get mind blowing plus education plus connection. And what starts to happen is you start to build rapport with your audience. You start to be perceived as the authority, but you also become a thought leader because you're talking differently, you're speaking differently, and you are adding value differently. And you get this trifecta where people are just like, I need to work with that person. And so those are the 3 areas that I recommend people start with.
Oh, bloody brilliant. But the thing is, I've seen people on social media who have just risen up so quickly, who do like these things and who just gain traction, momentum. And I think people just starting and just getting going and understanding and learning more about this and learning like what they're posting out so that they can actually have an impact, gain momentum. It's just such an important like journey to stay on. So thank you so much for coming and sharing all those. I feel there's so many golden nuggets in there, and just I think I need to even re-listen to it. And I should have been making notes as we were going. So obviously you have got, for everyone listening, you currently at the moment, as everyone's hearing this, if they're listening to it when it's gone live, you are doing your live experience, kind of going deeper into all of this. It's, what is it? I wrote the name down, Master Your Messaging. So can you tell us more about that and what it is so people can dive further in?
Yeah. So one of the things I love doing is doing a lot of live workshops, like actually helping and work through a lot of this stuff with everyone. And so we're doing a 3-day live experience where we're going to help you uncover a lot of those elements in day one of like mistakes you might be making that you don't realize are causing problems, and to get you to kind of unlearn things that are a little bit outdated and kind of set you up to know what to do. Then that's going to move us into day 2, where we're actually going to start piecing together a lot of your messaging, like how to pull out the identities and the values and what should you be putting together, and how does messaging actually work, and get you some clarity around your message. And then day number 3 is, now that we know the message and we know what mistakes to stop doing, let's transform that message into content, and we'll dive deeper into things like thought reversal, connection, and what to do. So by the end of these 3 days, you should have your messaging kind of mastered and know what direction to go. You should know what to stop doing. And then you should have a clear path on what content to start creating. So you can do all 3 things that we talked about today, which were get the eyeballs on you, keep the eyeballs on you, and create demand while the eyeballs are on you.
Amazing. Everyone should go and check that out. If it's a free live experience, so 100% is going to be so much value in there. So if you want to go sign up, a really quick, easy link is fea.link/messaging, fea.link/messaging, and I'll put it in the show notes for you as well. So you can go sign up, check it out, and it's completely free. So I would highly recommend it. Brandon is amazing. And there's just so much you're going to get out of it that's going to really help you to stand out with what you're doing and be heard, which is what we all want, really. Brandon, thank you so much. Where can people go and to follow you, like social media? Which is the best place?
Yeah. Social media or Instagram is probably the best place. It's I am Brandon Lucero over on Instagram, or you can just tune into our podcast, The New Generation Entrepreneur. And we talk all things about life, kids, and messaging and content as well. So
I love it. Thank you so much. It was so nice to chat with you and to hear your words of wisdom on this topic. It feels
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
It's always so helpful and so valuable. So thank you. I hope you have all loved listening to this episode. As always, I really love it when you leave me reviews over on iTunes, because the more reviews, the more eyeballs I get on the podcast, which is amazing. The more I get to share this message that helps people all over the world to actually follow their dreams and build successful businesses. So if you have loved it, I would absolutely appreciate it so much if you could share your thoughts in a review. But yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. Hopefully I will see you over for the live experience with Brandon, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the She Means Business Show. Bye everyone. I hope you've loved this week's episode of the She Means Business Show. If you want more help and support to build a wildly successful business, then join hundreds of thousands of women and become an FEA insider. You'll get access to some of our amazing freebies, to our bonuses, to our giveaways, to so much good stuff. You can join me over at fea.link/insider to get all of the goodness. And I will see you next week for another episode of the She Means Business Show.